this hybrid meeting of Angus Council. I would remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I have agreed the attendance of some members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute your microphones when not speaking. Just an additional piece there, for any member of the public watching, the full recommendations being considered today are within the papers available online, just to make things a bit more concise. Thank you. Item 2. I would ask my colleagues for declarations of interest and any statements of transparency. Apologies. Everyone's playing up. I need apologies first. An apology from me. I need to get this right.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Provost. We have an apology from Councillor Doran.
Got it right. Well done, Gavin. And declarations of interest. There are no declarations of interest. And now we go on to item 3, the previous meeting. Is the minute approved? Thank you, colleagues. Then that's the 1A. Now the special meeting, the same again. Have you had a chance to look at the minutes? Are they approved? Thank you very much. Item 4, the election of a provost. Could I have nominations, please? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I have pleasure in nominating the Deputy Provost, Councillor Linda Clark.
Could I have a seconder, please?
I would be happy to second that. I would second Councillor Clark.
Colleagues, are there any other nominations? Okay, if I'm allowed to say anything at this moment, I would ask for your agreement on that nomination.
Agreed.
Thank you. If I could speak for a moment then, please. I would just like to say thank you so much. This is a privilege and an honour. I do have to thank my family and my colleagues, but more especially, I'm going to thank this side of the House, because it's not often easy to mix across, and from all of you, nothing but support and kindness. And it's needed in this chair. It really is. It's needed to do the job justice. I'd like to thank all the officers that I've ever worked with. All of you been the same. So thank you so much. I'll give you my commitment. And I'm going to bring folk in if you want to speak.
Thank you, Provost. Just on behalf of the opposition, I would just like to congratulate you on the position and your nomination there for the Provost. So we're looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mann. Doctor.
Provost, I would like to offer you my warmest congratulations. You're following 3 female provosts before you, Frances Duncan, Ruth Leslie Melville and the late Helen Oswald, and each and every one of them made their mark on Angus Council, and I am sure, well, I know that you will continue in that vein. Now, I'm the only one in this chamber and the Council who have held the office for a full 5 years, full 5-year term, and I know full well how much it takes over your life. And it's a job 24/7. And I being here chairing the meetings once every 6 weeks is only part of what the Provost does. And I know full well that you know the other activities and duties which we've got to carry out, attending 7 events and writing numerous letters and engaging with the public. As I said before, I'm sure that you will fit the bill and do the job well. And I've been with you on a few occasions, supporting you at Veterans Event as Veterans Champion, and you certainly have done that. I think about a day after I was elected as Provost, I got a letter from Francis Duncan. Politically, we were on completely different planets, but we both thought the same, felt the same. And Francis congratulated me, and she welcomed me to the chain gang. And the chain gang, to have that chain, to wear it for 5 years, it's a great honour and it's a great responsibility. And I'm sure you'll live up to that. So, Provost, welcome to the chain gang. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and for all your warmth. And it would be very remiss of me, and I'm not going to be remiss today, and I'm going to bring you in a minute, Councillor Speed. I'm going to mention my dear friend, Councillor Boyd. We made a great team, Brian. Councillor Speed.
Yep. Thank you, Provost. Just to say congratulations. I think we've all seen your commitment and hard work in your role as Deputy Provost, and wish you every success in this role and look forward to working with you.
Thanks very much. And we're going to move on, if that's okay, folks, and thank you so much again. Right. The next one is we have appointments to Policy and Resources, because there has been, Councillor Whiteside has resigned from this post as Premier of the Policy and Resources Committee and from the committee. So there's 2 parts to this to be filled. And the first one is a nomination, proposer and seconder to fill the post initially. That's not for the convener, that's just to go on to Policy and Resources. Can I have nominations? Councillor Meehan.
I would nominate Councillor Duff.
You're filling the vacancy first.
I'm going to fill the vacancy first.
Councillor Devine.
Councillor Devine, do I have a seconder? I've got yourself, Councillor Cheap. Are there any other nominations? No? Can we agree on that one then, please? Agreed. Thank you. And then to appoint a convener, can I have nominations, please? Councillor Meehan.
Sorry, I jumped the roll earlier there. I'll nominate Councillor Duff.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Devine. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Is the Tay Road Bridge Joint Board. Councillor Brays has intimated his resignation from this post. So I'd like to ask for nominations for that one. Councillor Duff.
Provost, Councillor Melville.
Councillor Melville. Is there a seconder for Councillor Melville? Councillor Beattie? Councillor Beattie. Is that agreed? Agreed. Okay, and the third is the Citizens Advice Bureau. Now, although Councillor Devine has intimated her resignation from the CAB, there will be no requirement to fill this vacancy. Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Provost. Just to say a couple of words here. A little while ago, Citizens Advice Scotland found that we were really a bit of an outlier in Angus in having councillors on the board of the local CAB. So Councillor Shepherd and Councillor Brays left earlier. I stayed on because they were a bit short of trustees, but now they have found 3 excellent young women trustees who I'm sure will do really, really well. So I'm quite happy to be resigning from it now.
Thank you. Item 5, I'm going to ask Mr Lorimer to introduce this report, noting that it has already been considered by the Scrutiny and Audit Committee. Mr Lorimer.
Thank you, Provost. Good afternoon, members. This is one of those reports that has to come to Council, full Council, in line with the Treasury Management Code, so that's why it's here. But as the Provost said, it has already been considered by Scrutiny and Audit Committee. In a very, very summarised basis, we repaid some higher interest rate loans during the year. We didn't take any new loans during the year, and we did better than we'd budgeted for on our loans fund interest rate and the interest earned on our temporary cash for the year. I didn't have any other specific concerns or issues to highlight, but as always, happy to try and answer any questions that members have. Thank you.
Questions, colleagues? I see no hands. Can I move on to comments, please, then? Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. Really just to say from myself, thanks to Mr O'Shea and Mr Lorimer for the report. I think it's a very good, easy to understand report, and I think it paints quite a good picture for the last year, and thanks to finance officers for that.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Are there any more comments? Can we move then to the recommendations? Recommendation 1 reviews and scrutinises the annual report 2023/24 Treasury Management Activities attached Appendix 1, considering any commentary that may have been provided by the Scrutiny and Audit Committee. Are we happy to give you that, colleagues? Thank you. We can to item 6, and this is plans and budgets, and I'm going to ask Mr Lorimer again to introduce the report. Ian.
Thank you very much, Provost. Yeah, this report advises members of a plan for communication and consultation as part of the Council's 25-26 planning and budget setting processes. The report seeks approval of the plan overall and the detail of effectively proposing to do that in two stages, 2 phases. And the first phase and the proposals for the content of the consultation in the first phase are outlined in Appendix A. The report also proposes that kind of oversight of this arrangement be, as it was last year, be managed through the Policy and Budget Strategy Group. The proposals will follow the Council's normal process in terms of the existing policy for consultation engagement, which was agreed a couple of years ago. The proposal for stage 1 is a 4-week consultation, which, if it's approved today, the plan would be to launch that on Monday. That will use the Council's online tool, Engage Angus, but we will, as normal practice, make paper copies available through libraries, etc. That's what's all that's being asked for approval today, is that stage 1, and then the plan would be to bring back a further report with the details of a second stage of consultation with a bit more detail about specific proposals, etc. For approval, and that consultation, our current timeline for that, our thinking on that would be over the December-January period, so that information, the results of that, is available in time before the Council sets its budget. So hopefully the report is fairly self-explanatory. It's a relatively simple survey based on the Council's existing plans and priorities. Some of the wording of that has been changed and simplified from what's in the Council plan quite deliberately. And the purpose of it is really to get a sense of whether the public think that the Council's current priorities across economy, people, place are the right ones, whether there are any other things that the public think should be prioritised, and the same in relation to in the actions. I would say there's no intention to kind of fundamentally rewrite the Council plan. It was a 5-year plan when it was agreed, but this gives an opportunity to check in terms of the views of the public in relation to those priorities and actions. So again, happy to take any questions. Provost, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Lorimer. And I can see Councillor Devine, and I'll take any other questionnaires. And Councillor Speed, and then Councillor Gregg.
Thank you. Mr Lorimer, it's good to know that they'll be going out in paper copies as well, as you usually do. I was just wondering how we're going to get this out to young people, because we more than ever need to have the young person's voice heard here. So I was wondering if you're going to go through the schools, Young Scot, I don't know, youth clubs, things like that, to ensure that we do get that input from young people?
Through you, Provost. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Devine. We'll use as many channels and options as we can. Quite happy to pick up in terms of, through schools or through what other means we think are appropriate, and I'll liaise with our comms team in that regard. But the plan would be, as always with these things, to try and make it as widely available as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor.
Yes.
Next then, we've got Councillor Gregg, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. With Appendix 1, with what's going to be part of the consultation, the questions, how you mark everything and how important it is 1 to 5. If everyone that fills out the consultation ticks 5 to absolutely everything and sends it back, then that leaves us in a little bit of a difficult position. I'm aware there are some local authorities that do it slightly differently, where they attach a sliding scale of costs to each one of these things. Would that perhaps be an easier way to sort of do it, rather than going, well, 1 is not very important, 5 is very important, with the risk of having everything coming back as a 5?
Again, through you, Provost. Thanks, Councillor Gregg. A fair question, I think, in terms of how, and we have done that sort of sliding scale approach in the past. Just to clarify a little bit. So, in terms of the 1 to 5, what we plan to say in relation to that is 5 would be regarded as very important, 4 important, 3 neutral, 2 low importance, and 1 not important at all. So it won't be those numbers; it will be those phrases. So that we think will somebody might take a different view in terms of very important versus important and so on. So we think there will be some variability in that. If it all comes back as everything's important, I guess that gives us we're probably on the right track in terms of the things that the council is prioritising. I would expect there to be some level of variation, and we've deliberately left an option for people to add in new thoughts in order to capture other things that may be on people's minds. So, as with any consultation, you plan it out as best you can. What you get back will very much depend on how it's received.
Thank you. Then we have Councillor Speed.
Thank you, Provost. I note that most of the engagement is online. I just wondered if you could explain what could be done to maximise face-to-face opportunity, perhaps through working with community councils, and also if you could kind of explain what communication method you will use to let people know that there are going to be paper copies available within local communities, such as access offices, please.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Speed. It's always a challenge in terms of that reach to people that maybe aren't digitally enabled, etc., etc. We'll use the normal channels that we do for that. So we'll use internal communications and the people that work with people in communities. They will be available in libraries. People will also be able to contact the access line either to request a copy or perhaps to be taken through. It's a relatively short survey, so we'll use those methods in terms of promotion, and I'll liaise with the comms team, as I've mentioned earlier, in terms of trying to maximise the reach as best we can.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Thanks, Ian. I wondered on the survey part itself, I noticed there's one wee hyperlink at the bottom of page 30, and I wonder if our platforms can determine how often links are opened and read, and is there value or not in increasing the number of links around. So to explain things like what Taste Cities Deal is, what our net zero action plan is, perhaps, or what services are provided through the Health and Social Care Partnership. Thanks.
Again, through you, Provost. Thanks, Councillor Bell. I don't know is the answer in terms of the first part of that question as to do we know how many times links, etc., are pressed, but quite happy to have a look at providing additional links. Obviously, that doesn't work on the paper versions, but in terms of the online version, so that people can go to, if they want a bit more information about, as you say, Tay-Cities or whatever, we can take them to a site that provides a bit more information if they're interested in that.
Can I just come back briefly? It might be that they're counterproductive, and we have the evidence to show that. You know, the more times people leave the survey might diminish the ability to complete or the interest in completing. So it's just about that balance, I think, about providing the right level of information with, you know, actually discouraging people to complete it, which is what we don't want to do. Thanks.
Just to say, Provost, thanks. So the experts in this area will guide me on what's possible, what's not possible, and what's the best approach on that one.
Thank you, Mr Lorimer. And Councillor Melville. Councillor One.
Thank you, Provost. Just a very quick one on the back of the links. If they're available online, how would you make a solution for the paper copies to give the folk that would be answering it on paper the same information?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor One. We had a similar situation in relation to some of the golf consultation content lately. So the solution in terms of that, if somebody wants a copy of those, of what's available at the links, then we would provide that in paper copy as well.
All right, Councillor One. Okay, colleagues, we have had our questions. Are there any comments? Councillor Cheap.
Thanks, Provost. Yes, I think I'd welcome this survey, and I'd like to thank Mr Lorimer and officers for taking on board the comments of the PBSG as to the format and that this was to be amended to, which is great. I would say it's great to get it out there, whether it's digitally or in hard copy. I wouldn't be too disheartened about the number of people that might actually fill it all in and send it back, you know, because Mr Lorimer referred to the golf one, and although I know there's been less submissions in, there's been an absolutely enormous number of people who have actually engaged with it and engaged Angus and looked at it, read it, perhaps said that's good enough for me or whatever, but haven't actually completed anything on the whole thing. But so I think the fact that we make this available to the communities and public and give them a chance to at least read it, and if they decide to come back or not, that's up to them, but we're making it available. And I say, it wouldn't be too disheartened if we don't get so many back, not that I'm preempting it, but I think there'll be a considerable number who will at least engage with it, if nothing else.
Are there any more comments, colleagues? Can I ask us to go and be aware of the recommendations? A is to note, B is to approve, C is to agree, and D is to note. Can we accept them, please? Thank you, colleagues. Item 7 is asking the Chief Exec to address us on the Angus Council Plan Annual Performance Report 23-24. Chief Exec.
Thank you, Provost. This report presents Angus Council Plan Annual Performance Report for 23-24, and that covers the period from the 1st of April 23 to the 31st of March this year. I'm going to invite Gordon Cargill now to offer a very brief introduction to the report.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Good afternoon, members. This report is our annual performance report 23-24, as Catherine has said. It does relate to the period up to from 1st April 23 through to end of March 24. This report is partly to meet our statutory public reporting requirements. And it really does provide a comprehensive council-wide update covering all our directorates' work. It reflects the significant efforts of our staff to deliver services to the citizens of Angus over that 23-24 period. Appendix 1 of the report, which is the main performance report itself, provides a progress update with the key areas of work, which is under the economy, people, place, and efficient and effective council themes. We've also included a high-level performance overview for each theme, along with a short and long-term trend overview of movement in the various performance indicators that we agreed when the Council plan was agreed. There is, however, further detailed information on the performance indicators. These can be accessed via the hyperlinks that are within the report, which will take you to the How We Perform section of the Council website. And obviously that's there, along with the committee reports, but there for the public to review as well, which is an important aspect of this. In terms of overall performance, just a quick commentary on that. I would say the performance indicators provide reflect a mixed performance overall. There's some indicators moving upwards and others moving down. Some not changed at all. This is largely in tune with the national picture. The local government benchmarking framework is a tool that's used regularly by local government and has a broad range of indicators. So we pick up some of them as part of this performance report, but the full suite was reported to the June Scrutiny Audit Committee, and that reflected a similar kind of mixed picture across local government. So we're not out of tune with that, although our performance is variable in places. I think just a couple of points to highlight. That it's worth highlighting the significant operational challenges during 23-24 period through unforeseen events that took place, not least Storm Babbitt. And that required a shift in our planned use of resources to meet the urgent needs of communities that required our assistance. The other point I'd also specifically make would be around delivering services against the ongoing backdrop of the increasingly challenging financial position, with the staff resources required to focus specifically on that work. We know the savings programme that we agreed back in February, March time, and that's an ongoing annual requirement. And that's required to ensure that we are sustainable as an organisation going forward, but it does take up a lot of resource. Appendix 2 provides a range of case studies covering a number of various topics, and these were identified by colleagues who were keen to highlight their work to elected members. I've got a few directors who are in attendance online and in the room, and if there are any specific questions to address from the report or the PIs, then we can share the load on that, and happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Gordon. Colleagues, any questions? I've now got Councillor Melville, and I believe I've got Councillor Bell there, and then Councillor Speed. Anybody else? And Councillor One. Right, I'll come across there as well now. That's what you get you all at once. Can I take you again at the front row there? Was anybody there? Councillor Devine. Councillor Duff. Anybody else? Okay, take you in order then. Councillor Melville.
Thank you, Provost. Very pleased, I refer to page 55 in the report, very pleased to see in here the reference to the new build Monteith Learning Campus. However, that position is, of course, as of the 31st of March. And I just thought I would be cheeky and ask if someone can give us a position as of today or as close as today as possible to see how it's coming on.
Yep, thanks for the question. I think Kelly McIntosh is going to take that.
Thanks for your question, Councillor Melville. So the update that I got from Dave Smith yesterday is that the plan is still on time with the timeline that we'd written when the build began. We're still on budget. However, this is the time when the phase of the building will see many more contractors come onto the site, so logistically more difficult to manage, and that increases the risk of slippage in the timeline. And the next SQA examination diet next April and May also requires us to have certain conditions in the old school building for the young people undergoing examination at that time. So that will be another pinch point. So we're looking at whether we can have other buildings in the Monteith community designated as centres for examination. That's not quite as simple as it sounds, I'm sure you can understand. So that's another time when we might lose a few days on big examination days, but at the moment everything is on track. Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Provost. I was interested in a couple of paragraphs on page 46 in the Caring for the Economy section around employability and young people. I know our employability team does a fantastic job, all credit to them. I'm also aware that since the end of the last financial year that there's a worrying upward trend for young people to be economically inactive, and a lot of that relates to mental health problems. Now, that's the cohort that were largely affected by COVID and lockdown and being homeschooled, really. I don't know if you have any sort of current data on that, but it's certainly an area I'd be keen for us to keep an eye on, particularly linking with the Health and Social Care Partnership, because if we can get support and services to these people, and they're largely young men, and get them well and get them into a position where they're fit for work, that in itself helps their mental health. But it provides support to the economy as well. And I just wondered if you have anything to hand, Gordon, on any emerging trends that we have locally, because I do know it's a national trend. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question, Councillor Bell. I think there's two colleagues I think might be able to help out probably better than me, either Alison Smith or Kelly. I think Alison leads on the employability work. Oh, sorry, Jill Patterson is in the room. So, Jill, you're on.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. I don't have specific statistics to hand. What I would say is it's well known through our partners from the Local Employability Partnership. So it's one of the key themes emerging that we bring data into that partnership, which currently meets on a 4-weekly basis. It rigorously looks at all the trends and data emerging across Angus and really targets provision to that. We are challenged a little bit with the funding streams that come in from Scottish Government, so there tends to be a little bit of a lag at the start of the financial year and their annual year programmes, and we're just finalising the recruitment, the procurement at the moment for the external provision. But what I can do is bring back some of that information from the Local Employability Partnership and circulate that to members of some of the current trends and statistics.
Thank you, Ms Patterson. Councillor Speed.
I'm so sorry. Oh, yeah, apologies. I'll start again. The Council Plan in 2021 through to 2024 had 8 targets within the Measuring Our Success economy section. Yet in the new report, these same measures are not there to allow comparisons against the targets, and some have no performance measures or trends against them. I just wondered, given the fact that we had a recent motion on the change programme to keep the economic development, or to take it, sorry, remove it from the budget, how will we actually know whether this has been a success if the measures have changed and we have no performance data?
Okay, thank you for the question. The previous council plan, I think, which is what you're referring to, so we agreed the new council plan in March 2023. So that was the plan that had the suite of indicators, if you like, that members had signed off on. So at that point in time, we'd agreed what the measures were. So although there was maybe more before, you know, we've agreed what the new ones were going to be. The monitoring of them going forward, I do agree that some of the information that's available in the detail that's online through these indicators. There is some sort of missing information in that. I totally agree with you on that. And what we would hope to do is once we get the data collected, we'll try and update them on a kind of interim basis. So because they're online, they're on the website, we don't need to wait annually to come back and say, right, here's the latest annual update. What we'd like to do actually is move towards a position where we start to use more technology around that type of updates through Power BI and such like you've probably heard talked about before. So I take your point completely, but we'll have the indicators that we've got agreed. I think what's sitting below this is quite a high level of indicators, sort of on a strategic basis. The Economic Development Service themselves will have their own kind of operational indicators as well to identify areas where improvement and such like needs to take place. So through our own sort of performance management systems and such like internally, we will be keeping an eye on that anyway. So hopefully that gives you some assurance.
Mr Giggle, I'll just ask Jill to come in. I think we'll have Ms Patterson at this point. Councillor Speed.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. The challenge with the performance report was actually the timeline of when we produced what's the Scottish Local Authority Economic Development Indicators, so SLADE indicators across Scotland. So the timeline was actually, we're in the process of pulling those together at the moment. So just the way the report timelines figured, we didn't actually have the data because we're in the process of collating it. The other thing we've been pushing quite hard through the SLADE process is actually a lot of the indicators are related to overall economic performance, and obviously the council only has a very small intervention rate in that. So we've been pushing quite hard to really distinguish between broad economic indicators for an area and those that are specific to council services that we can push back on. Equally, as part of the change programme, which was linked to the savings but equally needed done, was a service review of the Economic Development Service. We're just in the final stages of that, and we are finalising our own local economic strategy, which is a series of performance indicators that look very specifically at activity in Angus and activity of the service in Angus, and that will start to draw out additional performance indicators that we can really measure what influence and difference our own economic development staff are making to business support, to employability, to Cities Deal programme.
If I may, I had another wee question, completely separate. Is that okay, Provost? Thank you. I just wondered if I could receive an update on the Seaton Grove improvements. They do seem to be taking a little bit of time, and I just wondered if you had any info on that, please.
I don't. I know that's referenced in the report. I don't have the detail on that myself, Councillor Speed. I don't know if there's any of my colleagues who are on the call or in the room. I don't know if Graham Daly is available or... Sorry? Oh, Gavin. Gavin Balfour's on the call.
Yeah, good afternoon, members, and thank you for the question. I don't have the exact detail, but I will get an update to you. I was looking at the programme as part of the capital plan, and I'll certainly share that with you, Lois.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Balfour. Councillor Wan.
Thank you, Provost. A very quick one. Page 54 on the maximising uptake of universal supports available for families in Angus. It's the third section. It's the Implement and Manage Maximise Angus project. It notes that following a successful first year, the project was suspended due to staffing issues. What was the staffing issue? And can we also get an update on whether somebody has been recruited now and is there a start date? Thank you.
Mr Lorimer's moved to the chair to take that question.
Thank you again through you, Provost. Thanks, Councillor Rowan. Yeah, the Maximise Angus got off to a really great start. I've got some statistics which I can provide in terms of the success. We've had, but the staff involved, because there were temporary posts, they moved on to other employment. We've had three unsuccessful rounds of trying to fill those posts. So we've not been able to take the work forward through lack of resource, basically for the last sort of 9 months or so while those posts have been vacant. So I've asked the Welfare Rights Manager, and she's liaising with colleagues elsewhere in the council in terms of, okay, what else can we do in relation to this area, and we would hope to bring some proposals back in terms of how we do that. But Recruitment is a challenge across many council posts at the moment, even full-time permanent ones. Recruitment for temporary posts is proving to be challenging, and in this particular instance that's the case. We are, as a welfare rights service, still trying to support families as best we can. You know, the rest of the welfare rights team is still there and seeing a lot of throughput in terms of requests for help and support. But the Maximise Angus project itself has not been able to keep going as it was intended because we've not been able to fill the posts.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks, Provost. A specific question and a very general one, if that's okay. At page 50, talking about mapping existing community wealth building. Now, I'm sure this has moved on from 15% since March. I was wondering if it would be possible for us as councillors to get a bit of a briefing on this, just to see how we're getting on with it, because it's very important, and I think we'd like to know that. The more general one is really some of the progress status things, like on page 57, we've got some that are just ongoing. We don't have any percentage there. I just wondered why that was, because most of them have got percentages and there's a few don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. I can take that second question first, and then maybe one of my other colleagues could come in on, Jill again, I think, on community wealth building, give you an update on that. Just in terms of the ongoing reference within the report, some of the actions that are in the report are quite a strategic level, and there'll be quite a lot of sub-actions underneath these. But where they're more strategic, they don't necessarily have an end date. It's a piece of work that is ongoing generally for a period of time without that end date. So we can't actually then put in any sort of measurable progress against it. So that's the way we've covered that off in the report. But hopefully that gives you assurance on that.
A little bit. It's just that I know that in the Children and Young People Mental Health Wellbeing programme, we've actually got a lot in place there, and I would have thought that we could have itemised that in some way, but I'll take what you're saying as read.
I guess it's around. Sorry.
Can I ask Ms Lee to come in, please?
Thank you, and thanks, Councillor Devine. You make a very good point. So the actions there around whole family wellbeing and the community mental health and wellbeing programme reflect whole partnership programmes that are being delivered through our community planning partnership and report into Integrated Children's Services Group. So in that way, we have a challenge in reporting progress through Pintana, which is how we manage our other council actions. And that's something we're working on with partners as to whether we can all access the same system. And it's certainly something we are aware of and we're taking forward. So please take some assurance that we're looking at that and how it can tie into one single system. Thank you.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Are both questions answered now? Ms Patterson coming in before Councillor Cheap.
Just to come back on the community wealth building point, yes, we'd be absolutely happy to provide a briefing for elected members on the current position in relation to community wealth building. We do have an internal working group of officers from all the different strands that sit under community wealth building who are really pulling together all our existing activity. What we find often is a lot of what we do is community wealth building, but we don't classify it as such. So it's actually just rebadging some of that in that context. What I would say is a couple of authorities that do major on community wealth building have had quite a lot of resource put into them as pilot authorities from external agents to support that, and they are providing our own teams with support and knowledge sharing amongst different councils, but we're happy to do that in the next few months.
I have Councillor Duff, then Councillor Beattie and Councillor Cheap.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. Yeah, I was looking at the homeless statistics in one of the links attached, and the commentary said that the homeless numbers had been reducing through 23-24, were increased at the start of 24-25. Am I correct in assuming that that's just the impact of Storm Babette and other sort of things, or is there something underlying there that we need to know about?
Thanks, Councillor Duff. I don't have the answer to that, but someone from Communities Housing might have that answer. Is there anybody on the call or in the room?
So, unfortunately, Alison Smith, the directors, had to leave the call for other urgent personal business. So if we can come back to you on that, Councillor Duff, after the meeting, I think that would be most helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call up Councillor Beattie?
Thank you, Provost. Gordon, you mentioned the effect of Storm Babette on the performance indicators. I know we're expecting a report on the recovery in Brecon. Can you tell us when that will actually come to Council?
Again, I don't have the answer for that, Councillor Beattie, but Catherine, do you want to take that?
Yes, thank you. So it is our intention to bring an update report to the next full council meeting in November. Is the deadline that we're currently working towards. Now, I should just, to manage expectations at this point, be very clear that will not be a report that sets out specific answers and directions of travel. It will be an update report which will brief members fully on where things are at, and probably will have some key interim decisions for you to take at that stage, and it's anticipated that there will be a fuller briefing made available to members in advance of that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Catherine.
Councillor Cheap.
Thanks, Provost, again. My question is similar to Councillor Melville's earlier one this afternoon on progress of major projects. And I think during the public's interest and scrutiny of our Both a Place for Everyone, this progress status in the end of March was showing 15% complete. And I just wondered how we moved on 5 months or so since then, where we are on the percentage scale now 5 months later. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cheap. I'm wondering if Gavin Balfour's able to come in and comment on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon. And through you, Provost, I excuse me, must have swallowed something there. I don't have an update on that, but I will get an update. I'll speak to either Mr. Daly or Mr. Cochrane, and certainly ensure that an update is sent out.
Happy with that, Councillor Cheap. Can I ask Mr. Lorimer to come in, please?
Yeah, thanks, Provost. I can't add a huge amount of detail to it, but it's very similar to the position in relation to the Moneyfeith project, on time, on budget thus far. So it's on programme. We get I sit on the board that oversees the work, and we get a progress report on a monthly basis. So the last report was, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and it was still on track at that point.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
That's the end of the questions indicated. Do you want to come in with a question now? A comment. I was just about to ask for comment. So you're in there, Councillor Melville, and please indicate if there's anybody else. Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thank you, Provost, and to thank our Director of Education for the update on the Moneyfeith Learning Campus. I think every councillor who represents Moneyfeith and Sidlaw was elected on a pledge to progress the project. The whole of this council backed it, and it's now going to be delivered under this SNP-led administration. For me, the way that it's funded in partnership with the Scottish Government is a tangible and meaningful example of positive joint working at different levels of government, and I think it's something that we all need to see more of. I do recognise, though, that there are challenges ahead, and I'm very much looking forward to having future updates as we seek to navigate our way through those. Thank you, Provost.
Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. And we've had a considerable number of questions on this report, and I think that's, I'd like to thank Mr. Cargill for the report. I think the fact there's a lot of questions indicates what a good and useful report it is. There's a huge amount of information there, and clearly members found that interesting and informative, and thank officers for the report.
Thank you, Councillor. And if these are everything from yourselves, can I ask that we look at the recommendations and ask you, please, if you endorse these recommendations.
Agreed.
Thank you. We move on to item 8, please, and that's the Scrutiny and Audit Committee. And I'll ask the Chief Executive would introduce the report, but I do see that we have Cathy Wiley. Is that right, Chief Exec? Or are you going to go to Gordon first? Mr Cagill.
Yeah. Sorry, so myself first and then Gordon, I think. So as members know, the Scrutiny and Audit Committee is a really critical component of the Council's corporate governance framework, providing as it does an independent and high-level focus on audit assurance and reporting arrangements that all underpin good governance and financial standards within the Council. And we remain grateful to Councillors Fotheringham and Nicholl for their continued leadership of that committee. The report before members today has been prepared in accordance with the SIPFA guidance to inform Angus Council of the work carried out by and the impact of the Scrutiny and Audit Committee during the period April 23 to March 24, and it also provides the relevant details of the committee's membership and attendance. So there may well be questions arising. Myself, Gordon and others may chip in as required. Happy to take any questions.
Colleagues, are there any questions? I see no hand. Can I ask for comments? Well, I'm going to make a comment. I had my first time on Scrutiny and Audit just recently, was warmly welcomed. I found it really hard at first, because I'd never done it before. And then when you heard officers speaking, what a difference it made, because we really do need our colleague officers to help people like me understand it a whole lot better. So thank you very much for the experience. Okay, so we haven't got any questions. We do go to recommendations, colleagues. Recommendation 1 and 2. Can I ask that you endorse these recommendations? Agreed. Thank you. Item 9, the review of senior management arrangements. Now, I think we're going to the Chief Exec this time. Have I got that right, Chief Exec? Thank you.
Yes, you have, Provost. Thank you. So, colleagues, members, this report sets out our plan to undertake a review of the Council's senior leadership team following, as you know, the retirement of the Deputy Chief Executive on the 31st of July this year. The report sets out that we'll draw on some external support to ensure that we adequately scrutinise our arrangements, benchmark against arrangements elsewhere, and assess what Angus Council needs in this next phase. Following the completion of the review, a further report will be brought back to advise members of the outcome. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Colleagues, are there any questions? I've got Councillor Stewart at the back. Anybody else?
Thank you, Provost. Yeah, can we have a time scale on how long this review will take, and also why can it not be done internally? Why do we need to bring in external people to do that? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. So there's no fixed time scale at this point in time. The process will be that I will need to complete a project initiation document, Councillor Stewart, which will set out the various steps. I'll do that in concert with our HR colleagues. The external support, just to be very clear, is quite a minimal consultation support, and it really is just to make sure that our scrutiny of our arrangements and our benchmarking is absolutely robust and externally supported. So rather than just relying on ourselves to look at that and to consider our options, we will be asking for a little bit of support to reflect adequately what's happening elsewhere in the country. Thank you.
Councillor Speed.
Sorry, yeah, my question's been answered. It was around the benefits of having an external consultant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Provost. Again, my question is very similar to that, so I'll ask another one. And part 7, 7.1, the cost will be contained within the Chief Executive Service revenue budget. What is the Chief Executive Service revenue budget? What is a figure? What is that?
So off the top of my head, I actually couldn't tell you exactly what the number is, but the reason it can be contained within that budget is the slippage from the Deputy Chief Executive's vacancy and the slippage from the previous director post that we didn't fill last year. So there's a sufficiency of funding within that to cover what will, I anticipate, be reasonably minimal external advice costs. So I hope that is helpful. So there's no requirement for me to come to committee to ask for approval for that, because it's well within the parameters of the money that officers can procure within our delegated arrangements. Thank you.
Supplementary, Councillor Gregg.
I was just welcome to come back just on the point made by the Chief Executive there. If it would be possible to find out what, as a figure, the Chief Executive Service budget is, then that would be quite useful, especially as we get closer to budget setting. Thank you.
Absolutely happy to do that, Councillor Gregg. The difficulty is it's not one thing, it's many different services that I don't all directly line manage. So there are a number of budget holders that will be able to pull together to get that information to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Can we go to the recommendations if you've finished your questions and comments, colleagues? Can I ask you to look at these recommendations and agree them, please? Agree. 10. The Angus Local Heat and Energy Efficiency Strategy and Delivery Plan Final Report. And we're going to definitely have Ms Patterson, and not just because I saw her coming over, promise.
Thank you, Provost. This report, members, seeks the approval of the Angus Local Heat and Energy Efficiency Strategy, otherwise known as LHES, and also the delivery plan following the period of public consultation. The Scottish Government's Heat in Building Strategy makes it clear that by 2045 our homes and buildings must no longer contribute to climate change emissions, whilst also tackling fuel poverty. The LHES is the core strategy and delivery programme to reduce energy demand and decarbonise heat supply within Angus, and its production became a statutory duty in May 2022. Just a point that LHES is not limited to the Council's building stock. It considers all buildings within Angus. The LHES has been developed by the Council, but it needs supported and delivered by everyone in Angus, no mean feat. It highlights which options are likely to be available for most buildings, and also those buildings which are going to be harder to treat. It will be down to individual homeowners, businesses and landlords to decide what is best for them and their buildings within the financial resources that they have available to them. Should the LHES and the delivery plan be approved today, then work will commence on taking forward the actions contained within the delivery plan. The challenge of this should not be underestimated, as the Council will be expected to lead by example, to invest in decarbonising and improving the energy efficiency of its domestic and non-domestic buildings to help meet the net zero by 2045 target. These works will likely be of significant cost, require staff and significant financial resource to progress. The progress of the delivery plan will be reported annually to committee. I'd like to thank officers, in particular Karen Webster, who's here to answer questions, for the significant volume of work and efforts to prepare the local heat and energy efficiency strategy and delivery plan. Thank you.
Questions, colleagues? I have Councillor Gregg, Councillor Devine. Anybody else? I'll start with Councillor Gregg then.
Thank you, Provost. In section 6 of the report, it's the sections about challenges. There's no specific mention of the challenges involved by quite a lot of the listed buildings that we have, most of which are privately owned. So that's going to require support from planning in the form of NPF4 and perhaps the Scottish Government, and also the legislative bits around listed buildings and conservation areas. So why is that not included as part of the challenges within that, if we're going to try and help with that?
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. I'll let Karen come in on a bit of the detail. There is specifically information in the LHES regarding conservation areas and listed buildings and the challenges around retrofit to traditional buildings. It's also something that's been looked at quite clearly by Scottish Government through the permitted development regulations, and we're into, I think, round 3 of changes to permitted development, and the Scottish Government is in the process of working on the next phase of that to look at that particular issue in terms of what relaxations may or may not be appropriate. Certainly, the recent permitted development rights have made some changes, but not nearly far enough. And I'll let Karen come in a little bit more in the detail of those specifics.
No, thank you for your question. Yeah, there is a section about listed buildings. Yeah, it does state that obviously listed buildings can be more challenging and more costly to upgrade than other building types. To be honest, from what Jill said, I don't really have much more to add than that. Obviously, there is the constructions with the listed buildings, consents and things like that. It is a great challenge, and it affects a lot of people in Angus. Yeah. There is a document which there's a hyperlink to within the document. I think it was like a UK government study that gives more information about that. So hopefully that will filter through to help make future decisions on the legislation.
All right. Councillor Devine.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. On page 126, 7.5, there is mention of money being available through the Tay Cities deal, the Angus Fund, the 26 million. I was just wondering if there was going to be any of that used for, well, indeed, these older buildings. It actually says older buildings. It doesn't say listed, but I was just wondering if you had any idea at all of what kind of amount of money we can be expecting for that.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. I don't have the specific figure off the top of my head, but hopefully one of my colleagues might come in while I'm speaking on that particular issue. So part of the Angus Fund project is a housing project that we are working very closely with the Housing Assets team and housing colleagues to look at a couple of pilots around this particular issue and bringing in some innovation from elsewhere, because as you will be aware, the Tay Cities deal very much has to have that innovation element. I was actually on a call earlier this week with the Local Government Digital Office around some projects elsewhere where we've used Internet of Things and smart technology specifically around this issue as well. So there's some good experience across Scotland in particular in relation to that. Specific to the LHE's delivery, there is an allocation of 75,000 for the next, I think, Karen will keep me right if it's 3 or 4 financial years that comes in as part of, she's nodding her head, as part of the revenue grant to support the implementation of the action plan that accompanies the actions that accompany the delivery plan. And the next phase of work is really to start and work through the detail of that. And I think it's probably fair to say that that 75,000 will be quite a drop in the ocean in terms of the work required.
I would think so.
Colleagues, I see no more hands for comments or questions. Oh, I do actually. Councillor Proctor.
Thank you very much, Provost. Just a comment. I've attended the CCAP meetings and we've discussed this. And I think, as Councillor Gregg said, he mentioned, you know, the houses in conservation areas. In Angus, we've got a big, diverse portfolio of property throughout the county. And I actually welcome the report, but I think it's going to be a long time before we can actually manage to implement all the recommendations in it.
Councillor Melville, then Councillor Duff.
Yes, thank you, Provost. I think for me the most startling thing in this report is that 22% of our households, that's nearly 13,000 households in Angus, live in fuel poverty. I think we all know how cold winters get here, particularly in our most rural areas. And the fact that we've got energy bills going up yet again in October and a cut to the winter fuel allowance by the UK government, my fear is that the picture is just going to get worse. I very much hope that the priorities in this report will make some headway in tackling fuel poverty, but I think we need to see real drastic action by the UK government to make the most difference to these statistics. And ultimately, live with such levels of fuel poverty in a nation as energy-rich as Scotland is, in my view, a damning indictment of the current constitutional settlement, but I'll leave it there.
Councillor, I'm just going to ask everybody in this room to state and the relevancy of what I'm reading here. Please do.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Yeah, I think this report was, I would say, a monumental piece of work. And I think we need to thank Karen Webster for pulling that together, because there was a huge amount of data there and a huge amount of information about houses right across Angus, the different types and all the rest of it. Obviously, the consultation responses are very heavily slanted towards landlords, which is probably not surprising given the potential legislation changes in the next few years. I think there's a huge amount of data in the report. It's really quite an interesting read. What it does tell us is the challenges are huge, and Councillor Melville's mentioned the Peel poverty. We've got a large number of pre-1919 houses, with houses in rural situations which are off the gas network, etc. And that getting to the position we would like to be for 2045 is going to cost an absolutely staggering amount of money. And I think we're going to need very significant government help to get there. It's clearly not something Angus Council could in any way fund, so whether there's private sector money coming in or whatever, it's a huge task. That's really all I wanted to say.
Can I ask you to recommendations? And can I ask you to agree them, please? Agree. Thanks very much. And I think we're probably now at the end, and I can just say thanks again very much, and I'm breathing a sigh of relief.
Can we stop the live stream, please?